as a parent, you have to, your kids trust you. Your family can be a high performing team, should be a high performing team. And you use the same things that we talk about for business and leadership and the military and whatever with your family. They will be a high performing team. And, when you're, talking to your kids, you don't talk to them like that. You want them to be successful. When you're talking to your team members, you want them to be successful. And oftentimes empathy helps drive that. It's really the skill of learning. If you're in a leadership position, it's a skill of listening and hearing and being present and of like what happened, what's going on, try to understand things from their perspective, and then give them constructive feedback. The same thing you do to your kids. You can either whip their butts because they screwed up, and maybe that's the right thing to do at the time, and other times maybe it's not. Maybe the right thing to do is to listen and give them construction feedback. Maybe they still get their butt whooped because it was that critical of an offense, but it's setting the precedence of that's not acceptable. Trust me, this hurts me more than it hurts you. Physically, it hurts you more, but emotionally, it hurts me more, which was a very hard thing for me to understand. But the same thing in the workplace. Like sometimes you have to punish people because they screwed up. It doesn't mean don't give them their freaking salary or their raise that they've been earning the whole time. Punish the offense and then move forward.
Yeah.
Not a global punishment. I'm going to punish you for the rest of your life and you're whatever. That's absolutely poor leadership. You lose trust immediately when you do that. And that's not a way to build a high performing team.
It isn't. And for people who are trying to navigate their way through trust, there's something that happens anytime that we feel threatened. So let's say, for example, hypothetically, my mistake was not a recoverable mistake. Let's say, for example, it was a lot more than that, right? And sometimes when leaders are confronted, especially people who have not spent a lot of time developing themselves, developing their skill set, being around, mentors who are really capable of driving and leading teams. And all of a sudden something happens and we think like it's a big deal and it's this huge mistake that's about ready to happen. Or like the sky is falling, Chicken Little kind of a thing, right? We respond to threats in a very specific way. And so when somebody presents us an issue and we don't know how to manage through it, sometimes what happens is we start to take this narrow view of the world. And our field of vision starts to become very restricted to what's immediately in front of us. That is a very normal and healthy evolutionary survival mechanism to stress and ambiguity. And leaders have to take that moment when they're feeling that to open up their aperture. And usually what happens is when you get a response like what I just shared, is that all of a sudden that vision comes in like this, like, holy crap, this is a big thing and we're not going to be able to recover from this. And it just leads to one thing over and over and over and over again, right? Blah, 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 whatever's going on in their head. When you take that, when you start to open up that aperture, you start taking a broad look at the challenges and the opportunity, and you have to do this. You have to get good at this and you have to learn how to do this quickly. It will help you refocus and foster stronger leadership. And it requires you to take a long view approach, knowing that whatever it is you're up against, you have to manage beyond the present. You have to lead beyond the present.
No, 100%. But that's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Not
focused leadership
on the teeny tiny things
yeah.
It's leadership is where most people fail in leadership is they do get sucked into the nitty gritty rather than stepping back and looking at the big picture.
And
big picture consequences. They fall into their emotions. They start leading emotionally instead of logically.
Yeah.
And again, that's a failure. That's not sticking to your core values. That's not establishing trust. That's not leading from the front.
And that erodes trust. Yeah.
So very quickly.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend, his brother in arms, one of my best friends, Mike Day, passed away a year ago. Mike and I would sit around and we'd talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And Mike had, for many, many, many occasions, my old podcast show that I did, Mike actually came out and said that you can't lead without trust, period. You just can't. They go hand in hand. One hand washes the other.
All the time. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have beat trust to
Have we
death.
squeezed
We
it?
bring up your episode. Before
Well,
we,
no, let me ask you this one
all right,
question.
go for it.
I have one. I know I got one that we haven't asked. So let's talk about the optics when it comes to trust. um, optics are a big deal. When people start looking at what's going on. So we know that, we talked about the mechanics of what happens when things break down, but how does somebody overcome the optics of what could look like a trusting environment or not a trusting environment? Because people make a lot of wrong moves when they suddenly realize that they're not looking good.
Can you ask the question a different way? I want to make sure I answer your question appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me so we talked about how people respond to threats, right?
To threat.
Right. So when they get something coming at them, all of a sudden they perceive it as a threat, and then that aperture starts
Yeah.
closing, right? So what are some of the, let me ask you this, what are some of the things that people can do, small steps forward, that when you're in a situation where it looks like people aren't trusting you, you can reverse those optics organically, earnestly, honestly? What are some of the most important things that we can do? So I'll give you for instance, like when you listen to diagnose, don't listen to win an argument, right? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. What are some of those little things that people can do collectively that will make a bigger impact?
I think we'll come back to the thing that you just said later, but the listen to diagnose versus listen to fix it. I think the biggest thing you can do is over communicate what your expectations are, or I think what your expectations are. These are my expectations. These are the things that I'm doing. These are the things that we're going to do to move forward. And because don't leave any assumptions to be made.
Yeah.
Destroy every possible assumption that could possibly be out there up front. Because if you don't, then people will make their own assumptions, and then it will continue to be a hostile environment. It'll be continue to not have trust, and you over communicate. You set those expectations, you follow up on those expectations, and you continue to do it over and over and over, and eventually trust will be earned, and everyone will have they will know that you don't mess around.
Yeah.
You do what you say, you mean what you say, and you execute in the way that you say you're going to do with that.
Yeah. One of the things that I admire about the SEAL teams more than anything is the fact that you guys, and I love this about you guys, is that you guys want people to come and tell you, listen, if I screwed up, I want to know that I screwed up. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that are actually afraid in today's world. They're very passive about this, and they don't want to talk about, they don't want to go through that level of discomfort of actually talking about what may have happened.
That's the ego. And
Exactly.
we all have it. Nobody wants to be told that they screwed up. No
No.
one wants to be told that they're wrong. No one likes failure. No one likes to
Yep.
fail.
Yep.
I say I hate failing, but I love failure, because failure is feedback. Failure is how I learn. I've learned more through failure than doing it right. And as a leader, I've so many lessons learned through failure. Like, oh, that is not how you lead. Got it. Okay, this is how you lead.